Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the discussion show that you all wish we did not have to have. Carlo Ancelotti, he's left us in the lurch. He's walked out on Everton to go back to Real Madrid. Massive kick in the teeth for all of us supporters, and as such, with all the kicks in the teeth that we've had this season, let's be honest, me and Terry and Owen are going to look back upon this one, the ultimate kick in the teeth to end all kicks in the teeth. But it won't be because it's Everton, because there'll be more to come, don't you worry. But we've got Terry and Owen, we're going to get right into this. Lads, what have you made in the last 48 hours or so?
Fucking stressing. I look back at it and I've never known a more distressing, more, and just a really shit 48 hours. It started off the other night, and do you know when you just see every time you refresh Twitter or Instagram and you roll down, there's always a bullshit rumor that you never believe and never comes to pass, and you just scroll past it. Well, this was Monday night's version of this. I just saw it and thought, nah, never going to happen. And then I've seen more Spanish news people sort of commentating on the same thing, and the more it came out, the more I started to believe it. And then the next day, more of the sources over here started running with it, and yeah, it led to him leaving. Incredibly disappointed. Huge fan of Carlo Ancelotti's. Not really a huge fan of how this has been dealt with, we've got to admit, but it is what it is. The main concern for me is the next one, and that we'll get into. I've got some real worries about what comes next, but on Carlo Ancelotti, I will always persist until I'll take it to my grave that without Carlo Ancelotti, Everton could have got about 39 points this season. The squad was just so dire at times and lack of motivation, as we've said a lot, that they just didn't seem to be able to pull any kind of performance level. But the sort of organisation and the discipline from the manager, I think, got us the point. I'll always say that. I'm grateful he came to the football club, but I'm now left incredibly disappointed and somewhat annoyed that he's decided to leave. But it's a football decision. Football people will make a decision that's always best for themselves, and that's the way it'll always be. Disappointed overall, but still quite fond of Carlo Ancelotti, and I'll always be grateful for the fact that he saved a season that's been pretty average to decentish, sort of, due to some of the records. It could have been a lot worse. So move on, and this is where I start to worry.
I'm actually of a different take to you, Owen, in that respect. I mean, we understand the lack of motivation, but clearly Carlo's head's been turned for a lot longer than past week. Could it be that he himself wasn't motivated for the final month of the show of the season? That's when the worst performances came.
Maybe so, but I'm more thinking from December onwards that, that couple of month period where if we hadn't reverted to a blast from the past, clean sheet mentality type football, if we hadn't gone to that and we'd have continued trying to play openly, I think we could have dropped down the league. He's made mistakes himself. I think some of his substitutions and game-changing decisions at times that haven't been good enough. But ultimately, I do worry for what comes next, and I think you'll find next season, if there's a huge shift in what we're trying to do with the playing style or whatever, that this team will probably, with the wrong pair of hands, find itself plummeting down the league, and it'll be a case of stick and twist then, and we'll just see what happens. But ultimately, I think really disappointed with Carlo Ancelotti. I think I kind of wish in the first place he hadn't decided to come to give us this sort of false hope and we'd gone and done something else. But it is what it is. But I'll always be fond of Carlo Ancelotti just due to following him, and some of the fact that he saved us from Marco Silva set pieces. But his name's been in the mix today, isn't it? Will always be. I'll always look back at Carlo Ancelotti with a hinge of regret, but overall, I am fond of him. Terry, I think if anyone's seen Terry's tweet the other night, I think you'll like to address it now.
Yeah, he's got a bit of egg to wipe off your face, Terry.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'm crestfallen. Like, I'm absolutely gutted.
Same,
like,
mate.
He was, for me, he was the best.
We've been the champions all season.
He was the best manager I've seen at Everton. I've got to be honest. I know he wasn't perfect. No manager's perfect, and I really did think that he was going to stick around for a little while. But it's just the reality, that harsh reality of football. Like, you've got to understand that we only got Ronald Koeman because we're bigger than Southampton. We turned Marco Silva's head because we're bigger than Watford, and so on and so forth. And now it's easy to forget that we got Carlo Ancelotti when his stock was lower than it probably ever been. He just lost the Napoli job. He'd been sacked at Napoli, and he wasn't, seen as like this elite, super manager anymore. Like, a bit like Mourinho was ended up being. Like, he was on his way down, although he still had the pedigree and the name. And we nabbed him by offering him a lot of money. So he comes in, everyone's overjoyed, because it's a different class of manager than we've ever had before. And he probably meant everything he said. He obviously did take to the club. He did take to, the area, Crosby and all that. I don't think he was lying. People have sort of turned on him a little bit now, and I can't blame them because, they're upset, they're hurt because they, really like this manager. And overnight, it's gone from, like, he's the best thing at the club to he's not at the club anymore. But I don't think Carlo realised, or I don't think he expected to ever get a top job again. But then Real Madrid stock fell. So now they, Real Madrid, he's not the old Carlo Ancelotti of old, but Real Madrid aren't the Real Madrid of old. So when they come in for him, he probably thinks, I've got one, maybe two at most, clubs left in my career. He might have one big job and then he'll go back to Italy and just chill out or whatever, be pundits or, take a small club there, but it's close to home. I don't know. But he probably never thought that this would come around again. So I honestly can't blame him. Like, we take players, we take managers of smaller clubs all the time. There are no clubs in world football bigger than Real Madrid. We've just been very unfortunate that, Real have come in for him. And the tweet that Owen's alluding to is, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it whatsoever. I just looked at the situation and thought, he's on an enormous amount of money at Everton. He's not going to get that anywhere else, even at these super clubs. They might be super clubs, but they haven't got the money that, they used to have, so they're not going to pay him. Like, obviously, we've found out now that doesn't seem to be an issue for him. He's on less wages there. I thought there's too many other, managers available, because at the time this was coming out, it first crept up when Allegri wasn't in a job yet, and Conte's still not in a job at the time of recording, and there's other managers out there. I genuinely thought there's no way they're going to go for Ancelotti, Real Madrid. They've had him before. He's happy at Everton. He's got all the money in the world, and he's there's other managers out there. Even when it starts to snowball and pick up with all those like Spanish Twitter accounts, still didn't believe it firmly. Only time my bottle started going was the next day when Fabrizio Romano started tweeting about it, and I was like, oh, this could be true. And then obviously, the rest, it escalated from there. And I'm just gutted. I'm just gutted. It's been a strange experience. I really, really liked Carlo Ancelotti. I agree completely with Owen that we would have been a 40-point team at best this year without Carlo, because some of these players are great and some of them are not half as good as people think they are. And I think the club have been taken by surprise. I think the club are a little bit shell-shocked as well. I believe they only spoke to him last week about transfer targets. A few days later, he's gone. So the club, quite naively, probably won't have anyone, any contingency plans lined up, because they've been convinced that this is a star manager who we're never going to sack. And he's with us for the long haul, and now here we are. And what's even worse than that tweet, Owen, is I actually said to my brother-in-law, day before anything came out, there was no suggestion yet. There was before the Wolves game, but not been out since. I said, thank God we've got Carlo Ancelotti clinging on to him for dear life, because look at the clubs who are trying to replace managers now. And I was listening to Palace, the manager, Celtic talking to Eddie Howe. Palace haven't got a manager Spurs have it was Spurs more than anything because I thought they're a closer match to us than Palace are personally. And I was thinking, look at the managers that Spurs are having to talk to. I was like, if we didn't have Carlo, we'd be scrambling around a load of bums trying to replace him.
Loads of bums.
The universe must have heard me think that a little bit too loudly because here we are having to pick from them to replace him, and the list of names later is just grim.
It's grim. I really fear for Everton next season, to be honest with you. I think.
No, so do I.
Saying we're not better than 40 points without Carlo, and that is true. We're in for a serious relegation battle next season unless some seriously different recruitment happens.
Well, I kind of caveat that without Carlo, that might be an over-exaggeration. I think if football Twitter gets the way anyway, and we have a manager and we're running up to the halfway line and playing 1v1s all over the pitch and we're having 40 shots a game, can you dare that, Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so if that happens and we suddenly become a team of a similar style to, let's say, a Leeds or something like that, then I could see this Everton team really struggling because we've got centre-halves whose best work are on the edge of our own box. We've got strikers who thrive from crosses and not really intricate play. Calvert-Lewin's not brilliant, sort of 1v1 or anything like that. He's best with tap-ins and that kind of stuff. We haven't got a midfield that can necessarily cope with an open pitch. They're not really quick, are they? Our wide players, we've got Richarlison who hasn't turned up all season, so he's not going to. So we'll miss what he does, and Hammers will probably go. And we've got no one else, so I don't see within this team the solutions to play more expansively. That being said, if someone comes in who's a bit younger, a bit fresher, or a different manager who could come in, sort of adapt a bit more, and we could still do well. But I think if we're going to have someone who's so set on an open style, I would worry about this team doing. Certainly wouldn't do better than it has done this season, I don't think. But it wouldn't. I feel it would do worse, but that's just my opinion.
So with that in mind, regardless of how good or bad the manager is who's been in charge of Everton, can we all just agree the club hierarchy is an absolute mess?
Yeah, but then, like Terry says, I struggle to blame them because why would?
No, I'm not referring to Carlo here, by the way. I'm referring to the club is an absolute mess. Carlo or no Carlo.
Yeah, there isn't a clear trail of thought for what they want now. Anyway, they're going to have to make a decision of what type of club do they want Everton to be. There's so many factors in play with that. But at the end of the day, the fans will at the end of the day get behind anyone who wins games of football. So except Sam Allardyce, it seems. But taking that aside, they just need to get a manager who's going to win games of football and then develop from there.
Yeah, well, that's easier said than done. I'm not confident in these players either that we have here.
Too many divergent agendas at the club, clearly. Obviously, I can't blame them for what's happened with Ancelotti. I don't think anyone in the world expected it to happen like that. But it's, we don't know who they're going to replace him with yet, but it seems pretty evident that the plan that was in place was go all in on Carlo Ancelotti. So what do we do now that he's not there? It's like there's no sort of apparatus. I'm going to pull a quote from Carlo Ancelotti's book. He didn't coin it, but he's used it. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It doesn't matter what strategy we have, the culture at the club is wrong. So no manager can come in and change things with a good strategy because the culture is wrong. We've got club within a club in the under-23s. We've clearly got an under-23s manager who's still got a lot of influence. And Marcel Brands has been here and he's oversaw two managers and he hasn't picked either of them quite clearly. What is the director of football for? We've recruited for, after, Marcel Brands' brief being recruit to a particular style and let that be the thread that goes through the club. And that hasn't been implemented. I don't even think it's his fault because you've got other people sticking their oar in at a higher or same level as him. What are you going to do? Because now we're going into the summer, and all right, the things we need, regardless of the manager who comes in, are pretty evident. We need more pace up front. We need a right back. Up front, I mean front three. So, the right-hand side needs surgery. Right back, right attacker. Centre midfield probably needs more energy. That won't change no matter who we bring in. But now we're probably going to look at a situation where James Rodriguez is not going to be keen to stick around and play for Eddie Howe or Sean Dyche or whoever comes in, whether you like them or not. James Rodriguez won't care. And Alan, I can't see him kicking off and wanting to leave straight away, but I think probably next season's the only other season we're going to get out of Alan before we let him quietly go out the door. So we're constantly having to restock the shelves. Nothing sticks. So when you keep changing manager, you're going to always have to keep bringing in new players, and that was the plan, was supposed to be to keep hold of Ancelotti for a long term, to get his own squad in. Now we're coming into another manager coming in, but it's not his own players. I mean, you've got to watch him decide whether he wants to stick with the rubbish that we've already got. We're now in a position, we're in a more upmarket version of where we were after.
I think he might get his new contract now.
Sorry, there was a delay there, and I think I spoke over Owen.
No, I was just going to say, just jokingly, Gilfie might get his new contract.
Well, he might not. That's the thing. Alan loved him, yeah. But I forgot.
Upmarket version out of Allardyce.
Oh yeah, and we might now be in the same position, but a more upmarket version of Allardyce, where he brought in two players who were clearly, like his players, and they haven't got a place with the new manager. I don't think Alan will be quite like as bad as Cenk Tosun or Walcott. I think Alan will still have a role to play, but you cannot argue that Carlo's brought in two players of his own ilk because he thought he was sticking around and he wanted to put some class and leadership in the team. And now they're going to be disillusioned. James Rodriguez must think I've left Real Madrid to come here, and now he's gone to Real Madrid. It's just... I just don't... I'll be quite fully honest with you. I know we're probably going to discuss this in this show about who we want to see replace him. I couldn't give a rat's arse about that. This club has broken me. It's broken me. I've had enough. You thought that's the thing, isn't it? It's just.
I care.
I don't care who the new manager is. I know you don't now. You cared last week who the new players were going to be because I broke my own rule. I loved Roberto Martinez in the first season he was here, and when the wheels came off that, I have said it before on this. I never allowed myself to love a manager after that. It was a business. Managers came and went, and I just took them as they were until Carlo Ancelotti talked me knickers off again. I'm saying Everton are my team. I want to be here into the new stadium, and I let myself love again, and here we are. That's twice now I've been burnt. Fool, shame on me.
No, I'm not even messing, mate. I've had me heart very much broken by this, and at this point, I've had enough. I don't really care who the new manager is. I don't care who the new players are because we're still the same mediocre mess that I'm ashamed to support.
To be honest, mate, I've said at least 5 times about 10 different people in the last 48 hours. If he comes, I go. Because I'm just like, it can't be.
Oh, the Antichrist.
Unless we...
So it's the principal one.
Yeah. Unless we pull a madness and get someone who's not been mentioned yet, we... Say we do get someone mad like Simeone or someone, we won't, but say we do pull
just on the league. He's still on the piss.
I know, but no, I'm not. Of course,
that's the best time. That's the best time to coax him in while he's drunk. Because the only way he's going to take the job.
I'll rephrase it. Unless we pull off another, blinder like when we got Ancelotti in the first place, because no one expected that at the time. I certainly didn't. Unless we were to do that again with someone who hasn't been named yet, anyone we appoint is going to be underwhelming, and we're going to be fed up because it's not going to be Carlo Ancelotti. Ancelotti wasn't sacked; he's left us, so we're not going to be looking forward to the new one because there's no way he's going to be better than Ancelotti in our minds.
With that in mind, this job is going to be a major poison chalice.
It won't be. That's just wishes to be point though. It won't be forever. It will be in the first week or two. And then, when everyone's got used to him not being there and there's a new manager in our training kit and coming out, and he's, you see him with the players and all that, and you'll you'll get your head around it eventually. You'll always probably, I mean, unless you didn't like Ancelotti, which I think you're a loon if you didn't before this, but unless you didn't like Ancelotti, you're always going to look back and think, what if? This is going to be like one of those, if we weren't banned from Europe things, it's going to be such a kick in the bollocks that we'll always look back and go, what would have happened if he'd have stayed? But we will, Everton were around before this, and we'll move on. We'll win games again. And the second we win games again, people will start to, remember it's terrible, but it's Everton.
Yeah, you say that though, Terry. If it's Eddie Howe, I don't imagine people will be too much on board with that.
If it's Eddie Howe or Potter, then no, not for me.
Well, are we going to get it into the next manager chat now, or is that going to be a separate thing?
Well, we will do a separate little segment on that, I think. But for me, it's more that I don't really know where to go from here, because it's too obvious to me that the club is rotten to the core. Carlo Ancelotti was.
It needs a direction that everyone's getting behind.
Well, that's it, but we're not going to have that because there's too many. Dare I say it? There's too many big characters in the boardroom who want their own thing. So there's always going to be a bit of friction.
All the linked names are the same as friggin' 7 years ago. And who was here 7 years ago at the club at the very top level?
Yeah, I find that I really struggle to sort of get into just flaming everything on Bill Kenwright, because that seems to be the popular thing to do with some people. Yeah, fine, he shouldn't be here, but I'm just sick of hearing the name, to be honest. I was sick of hearing it 3 years ago. I'm definitely sick of it now.
I blame him, and I blame Machiri, and I blame Marcel Brands for not. Marcel Brands needs to dig his heel in, because that's his job, is to
not convinced on him whatsoever. He's got a new contract, but yeah, if he hadn't had that new contract, his position would be very much up in the air for me.
I don't know. I think he has got the right idea, but I just don't know if is he even like assertive enough. I mean, I get Machiri's the boss, so if he wants his own manager, then I guess he wants to go and get him. But I just feel like there needs to be a bit of some more, cohesion within the boardroom, and then we might start to see a bit more actual blooming cohesion on the pitch.
One thing at a time, eh?
Yeah.
I'd put it this way: I'd rather Marcel pick than Farhad or Bill. Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think one person should pick. I think everyone should be on the same page with it.
Well, that should be the case, but if anyone does get the final say, it should be Marcel, because he's the director of football. He should hire the football manager. Yeah,
I agree. But that would be his last chance as well. Because if he fails with that, and he's been given the choice, and he's bought Iwobi and Bernard and Gomez, then we have to look at start. There's so much wrong with the club. It's just a vicious circle, and you can always say this, caveat this, about the failings of one particular individual, but at the end of the day, there isn't a proper sort of strategy in place for anyone to succeed or everything.
That's the thing. Like, as supporters, what does that say to us? What's the point?
It's very depressing.
Exactly. I just don't see the point. Investing time, and this is the worst part. I've lost interest in football as a whole. I don't even want to watch the Euros anymore.
Yeah, well, I can't blame you for not wanting to watch Southgate ball.
Well, yeah, that, but it's just ruined football for me completely. I've just had enough of the whole thing.
That's the point. That Florentino Perez had a stab along with his other merry men at ruining football several weeks ago, and it got thwarted in the end, for now. So instead of ruining football, all he managed to do is just ruin Everton. And is that just not peak Everton? Like, he didn't manage to destroy the whole game, but he did manage to destroy Everton by getting our manager offers. So nice one.
The manager very outspoken and like knocking the Super League anyway, but
Yeah.
None of my business.
Don't trust anyone in football is the moral of the story.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But for me, I'm just sick to the back teeth of seeing teams like Leeds, Leicester, coming out the Championship and just making us look crap, and we are crap. These teams are having the ride. These fans are having the ride of their lives. Even teams in the Championship who are coming up. Like, what is actually the point of our existence? We just sit in mid-table every season and do nothing, and it's never going to change.
Do you know what I am sick of? Having this conversation who should be the next manager every 18 months.
That for sure, yeah.
I'm really fucking sick of this.
Yeah, it's certainly one of them. But yeah, we'll leave the Ancelotti furor to. If there's anyone got anything else to say on the Carlo front,
I would like to say good luck, but maybe in a few weeks I'll be able to wish him well. But yeah, not at the moment.
I wouldn't be saying that sincerely at this stage. I'm not going to lie. I'm still.
I wouldn't either.
Way too here for that.
There's a bit of me that doesn't blame him and understands his decision. That doesn't make it any better. I would love to be able to sincerely say good luck with Real Madrid, but it would be on a sort of bitter sort of slant at the moment. So yeah, other than that, move on, and then when there'll be a time to talk about Carlo, reflect on this in the future. But it's still too raw for me.
Yeah, it's one of those. There's a lot of obviously a lot of bad blood.
I tell you what, the one positive about this will be, and I saw someone mention this the other day. The biggest positive about this whole thing was we won't have Steve McManaman absolutely perplexed at Everton playing a deep defensive line from a free kick.
Instead, it'll be back to Marco Silva conceding 15 goals a season from free kicks.
Well, we'll get into that.
Right, anyway, we'll leave it at that because I've had enough of getting angry and I'm just sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. Not much more I can say.
Terrible, but it's Everton.
It's terrible, but it is Everton. Right, anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Drop us a comment, give this video a like, and subscribe for more admittedly sad content. And yeah, of course, let us know your opinions. Keep those comments coming in. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.